Hi, I'm Jazz, and I am an alcoholic and I am codependent. I am in recovery from alcoholism and codependency. I seek health, and I'm very curious by nature, and that's really benefited me a lot in my recovery journey. What I want to share is that as I am embarking into new territory with this coda stuff, I find what I know is that it was super beneficial for me to just focus on AA first. I had to figure out my isms. I had to figure out, I had to acknowledge that I was alcoholic and I had to get sober. Now, that was a very crucial part, I believe, to become clear. Like, in my first few years of getting sober, my body, it took years for my body to get back into normal. What I mean is that I wasn't thinking clearly, I wasn't regulated, I wasn't nourished physically, I wasn't healthy at all. It takes a long time to get balanced. I had to just work on my first year. My only goal was to just get to stay sober and to get recovery put recovery into my life. How do I put recovery first? How do I get to meetings? And the first year was all about just the how and the work, and it seemed like I had to move a lot of pieces all the time. And even just that act of having to move all these pieces all the time, today, it's almost like I adapt better, or I'm okay with the change. And in the beginning, it was more about controlling the change, just really trying to make things fit. And there was just so much effort and exhaustion that went into that. I had a really hard time accepting life on life's terms. I had a really hard time with going with the flow. I didn't know who I was. So, in my first year of recovery, I just focus on the basics, how do I get to meetings? Which person do I talk to on the phone? I had a sponsor, then I had another sponsor. So it took me a little while to nestle in to the program and to a sponsor, and find a home group, and to do the steps. It all took time. I was in such a hurry in the beginning. And I think in my second and third year of recovery is when I've really learned to slow down and just to stop operating with such haste. What am I racing towards or racing from? I don't need to hurry to fix my life. I need to be in the moment and where I am, and accept where I am, and accept the decision or the situation for what it is. So getting sober and staying sober was my primary focus. And once I could just, I also was heavily addicted to cigarettes and Diet Coke. And when I quit drinking, I also quit, drinking, drugs, anything that altered my state of mind. So I had to quit smoking, which meant I had to quit. I was smoking about a pack and a half a day of cigarettes. I was just breathing smoke to cope with not drinking. That was one of my things. But they told me in the early days to just quit one thing at a time. So I quit the alcohol I did the treatment and working on the program, did my first year, did my second year. And it was about my third year when I started realizing I needed a bit more. And then that led me, I sought out for it though. I seek things. I get to somewhere and then I seek for more. Like I like to travel in my recovery, and I found Coda. So Coda is I love Coda. It's just been life-changing for me. And this is just really where I really learned about boundaries. I really learned about self-care. I learned about what it means to set a boundary and just what to expect from setting a boundary and the after effects. And they call it afterburn. So when someone is very upset with the boundary that you made, and the boundary that gets made is for me. So the boundary isn't for them. It's for me, right? So that's obviously going to irritate a lot of people, because that means they're out of their comfort zone and you're in your comfort zone instead of the other way around. So the codependent in me, in my early recovery, and also dating someone in recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous, my codependency was in control for sure. And that I had to learn about how to recover from my codependency. And I didn't even know I was codependent until I went to Codependents Anonymous. I was a control freak and thought that I was just really good at handling everything, that I knew what was best. I was giving advice. I was exhausting myself because I was also very over responsible for everyone and everything. Hyper vigilant, like what you're feeling, I'm feeling. And that goes for like good and bad, but mostly just the bad. Like I'm exhausting myself trying to fix everybody in the room just so that I can be okay. And I've been living my entire life backwards, like putting everybody else first and then getting to jazz. And, today I put myself first. I put my recovery first, and everybody gets looked after anyways. Is the beautiful thing that I've learned, is that, I also get to be happy and free and have a good time. And everybody else is still getting their needs met as well as mine. So it's win-win. But I didn't think that was possible when I was deep in my codependency. When I first came to Coda, it would have been a January or two ago. And when I first came into Coda, I was just crazy. Like I was sober, but I was crazy. I was trying to arrange the whole show every single day, every single minute. If this was just so, then this could be this, and this could work out. And if I just tell him this, then he'll treat me like that. If he could just get in line or get on board or on the same page or do what I want or feel what I want or not feel that, then we'll be fine. Then we're going to have the relationship that we're going to have, and it's going to be great. And I had to give all that up. I learned to give all that up in Coda, though. I didn't know how to do that on my own. And it took a lot of people around me, and a lot of other recovering people that were safe and healthy. And another thing about codependency is that I didn't know who was trustworthy and who wasn't. But I couldn't know that because I couldn't even trust myself. I didn't know how to trust myself. And I have heard that so many times, like, just trust yourself. And I thought that was so confusing because I was like, well, how do you just trust yourself? Like, that's actually quite a difficult question. And what has happened over the years or a year and a half is that by practicing the program, like I'm a doer. I work the program and I'm an action girl. So what has happened is that every time I try to put my own need first, I try to respect myself or honor myself, even in the face of someone else's disappointment or disapproval, like as I have done that over the last 1.5 to 2 years, I've developed a strength inside of me that says it's okay to have what you want. It's okay to need what you need. And through each little action over and over with repetition and consistency, I've somehow, like through this process, I've somehow developed like the right to be me. And then because I've gained a little bit of strength, I've basically learned that I'm reliable and that I show up and that I have me and that I'm going to handle this situation and do what is best for me. But I never even gave myself that permission before. I didn't think I had the right to be me. I didn't think I had the right to have a want or a need. I didn't know the difference between my wants and my needs, and I didn't even know the difference between feelings and thoughts. So as a unrecovered codependent, I'm completely driven by my fears, completely controlling. I'm in denial. I have low self-esteem. I'm completely like, I was just such a mess. I was so tired. And I didn't know what I wanted because I never gave myself anything that I wanted or anything that I needed. So how could I know what my wants and needs were? So by working this program, I had to first kind of like sift through what those wants and needs are. And by doing all these little steps in the program, like, becoming reliable on myself, that started to build some kind of trust in myself. And then when I started trusting in myself, then I could see who was trustworthy in the other person. Is that person trustworthy? Are they doing that? Are they showing up? Are they always going to meetings? Are they doing what they say? Are they reliable? But when I was, I'm more aware of it now, but when I was in my denial, I had a hard time with trusting people that were, my habit was trusting people that were untrustworthy. And it took a long time for me to stop trusting in untrustworthy people. So that got me into so much trouble because I would go to a person that was untrustworthy in my life, somebody that was close to me, put a demand, a request, or expectation on them, like I needed them to do something. So I take the untrustworthy person, and then my control puts an expectation on that person or that some kind of demand or request, and then I get all upset because that person who's untrustworthy lets me down, and then I blame that person for letting me down. So it's actually my fault for choosing to do that and put that onto an untrustworthy person, right? I've learned to know better now. And sometimes I still make mistakes. Sometimes I got to go back and get burned a little, just to remind myself. Like I do it by accident, but I'm way more aware of it and I'm not beating myself up for that. Because every once in a while, I might trust that particular person to see if maybe there was some growth or maybe I can trust them now. But, often not. It's kind of the same old news, like they're still untrustworthy. So then what happens is that person's untrustworthy. So I had to learn that, like, who these trustworthy people were, but it really did start with myself. It started with developing that trust within myself. And it takes a while. Like, there's nothing in my first meeting that could have told me that this is the life I could have had today. Like, today it is better than I thought it would be. And I never thought I would have the confidence to live my own life and do my own things for me. But, yeah, it's changed. Untrustworthy people I also find that it's very linked with self-esteem because, for an easy example, if somebody has a hard time showing up on time, right, that's a sign of low self-esteem. So if I'm constantly late for stuff and then that person's mad at me, right, as the low self-esteem person, if I'm not showing up for that appointment, I'm actually not showing up for me. And now I'm also not showing up for that person. So I'm going to show you this example from two different perspectives. So when I am late or don't show up for stuff that I said I was going to do and commit to, I am not building up that self-esteem. And again, I'm not going to get that confidence if I don't consistently try to show up for appointments on time, for my meetings. I'm not going to get that confidence. I'm not going to get that gift from doing that work. And now the other side of this was, I have compassion today now for this, but I would ask this person like, hey, can you be here? And it's at this time. And this person just kept being late. Like they're still late. And so I've learned that person just doesn't have that much self-esteem yet. They're at that journey for them. But I took that so personally, like my codependency takes that as, don't they know that this is so important to me? Like, how can they do this to me? Why are they always late? Don't they know this just pisses me off? And then we would just constantly get in a fight because they would be late. Now, to learn how to not trust untrustworthy people and to accept people for who they are, this comes out to play too, is that, I don't expect that person to be on time. Like if they can't show up for me, they're not showing up for themselves either. And that's their stuff. So I expect that it might not be on time. So I'm kind of letting that person off the hook. I can't change them. That's the way they are. They're on a journey, right? And the other thing is that, like, if it's really important to me, I need to go do it. I need to find a trustworthy person, not to be using untrustworthy people to get my own need met. That's not getting my need met. So these things I've learned have developed over time through just working the program and the steps and getting on the phone. Another sign of one of my codependent traits that I really struggled with, like what brought me to Coda was low self-esteem, and I was a control freak. So yeah, I could not make a decision, very indecisive. I couldn't pick the dinners. I couldn't like the person I used to date, he would always decide what we ate. And I would be like, you just pick. And I always I would talk about things with them and I wanted their approval, and I love that I don't need that today because of Coda. Like, I don't need them to like it. It has to just be okay with me. The decision comes down to what I want and need. The decision comes down to what's okay with me, not what's okay with them. That's separate. And I'm like becoming okay with however they are going to react or respond or deal with how my decision might affect them. I've gotten in touch with myself. In ways I would have never been able to. Like, I've basically been going to therapy my entire life, but nothing like 12-step programs has changed my life. Like in the last 4.5 to 5 years, working a 12-step program, there's no way I could have gotten there with therapy, and all for free. Like, just from sitting in rooms with people talking about alcoholism, relationships, vulnerabilities, fears. Because a lot of, I know that there's 1,000 forms of fear, but in this emotional, psychological journey, and in this recent part I've been involved in, figuring out, fear is an emotion. So if I'm in my emotion, I'm not using my brain. My emotions are driving the ship. And if I'm in a fear response, I don't think I'm not making the best choice for me. There's no way. I'm not making the correct choice. I'm not making the honest choice. And while I start figuring out, while I start moving through my life, making boundaries that help serve my greatest good, right? I start making boundaries. It starts changing my relationships. I start changing because I start listening to the person that's inside of me. And when I start, listening to that person, creating a boundary, that is when I start to become my authentic self. Like, one thing leads to another thing, and things blossom and open up. And what I've noticed is just like, as I become healthier and healthier, I see so much more. Life is really interesting. There's no end. This is eternal for me. And it just feels like there's no end. It just feels like there's so much more coming and to be discovered upon. And it's exciting to me to kind of know that there's as much there for me as I want. There's as much as I want to get out of this life now. And it's so much more possible when I'm in good physical, spiritual, mental shape. Like, I have learned to become my own best friend. And I never used to listen to myself. I never used to give myself that time to breathe or to figure out how I'm feeling. Like, often not. What I do is something happens and I give myself that 2 breaths. One is good, but 2 breaths is way better because now I'm really calmed down. And then I go, how am I feeling right now? And Jazz, I have to know how I'm feeling. And when I know how I'm feeling, what's my signal? Like, how is that affecting me? And how am I doing? And what's my feeling? And then I figure out what I'm going to do after that. So I've had 2 breaths. I've acknowledged my feeling because my feeling lets me know something. It is like the first line of defense for what's going on, right? And I've really learned to not dismiss that or just go straight to solution or go straight to distraction or straight to anger. All of those things just kind of are like top layer actions, but they don't get to like the root of really what's going on with me. And when I really operate from a place of what's going on with me, that true honesty is where that authenticity comes out, where I'm operating in a place that works best for me or is not good for me, and I can move away from that. But when I'm not in that, like, living that honest way and communicating with myself and giving myself any of that time, I can get lost out to sea pretty quickly, and I'm going to be living a life that I don't want to be living. I can convince myself and lie to myself, but it's not going to be the true life that I deserve and want and that is fulfilling. It is not going to attract the things that are closest to my heart. It's not going to attract the people that I like. It's going to attract probably things I don't want. And I've lived my whole first part of my life doing things I don't want to do and trying to deal with, why are they like that? And why is this like this? And why is that job like that? And I've really learned how to take responsibility for every single thought, feeling, and action really comes down to me. Like, the real root of I am so responsible for my life. The life was given to me. I am the steward of this ship. And it is up to me to figure this out. Like, I cannot be a victim anymore. I was in that for a long time, but making a boundary, and there's two parts to a boundary. There's, here's my boundary, I'm going to make it. And then if that boundary doesn't get, I have to reinforce the boundary, and there's also a consequence to the boundary. And I also have to think about that consequence. So if I make a boundary, what's the consequence of this, and this, and what, and also, did I let that person, if a person is involved, did I let that person know of the consequence, right? So there's a lot of action there. Like, there's a lot I have to do for that boundary. But yeah, these are just like tools of recovery that have helped me be able and available and capable to now live the life that I really believe I was truly meant to live. And I don't know what I did before getting sober and Coda, but it just feels like I'm actually awake now. And anything else I did before this just didn't really matter, My real love for recovery is really just deep into the spiritual, mental, emotional stuff. Yeah. Thanks for letting me share.